marketing.
Very good. Well, welcome everyone to another edition of Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. I'm Rich Schwerin, one of the co-organizers. It's great to see everyone today. I'm filling in for Dennis, who's doing his civic duty, serving on a jury. Thank you, Dennis. We're real excited today. We've got a speaker, Ethan Beute. Hi, Ethan. Thanks for joining us. Ethan, I'm going to crib from your bio here. You're the chief evangelist at BombBomb. You're a Wall Street Journal best-selling co-author of Human-Centered Communication and Rehumanize Your Business, and you're host of Chief Evangelist and the Customer Experience podcast. Ethan spent several decades helping businesses, professionals create human connection across the digital divide, especially with video emails and video messages. This website says you've sent more than 14,000 videos yourself, maybe more since then, right?
Yeah, I try to keep that updated, but maybe 15,000-ish. Yeah.
Right. So today, Ethan, you're going to tell us a little bit about video email, and I'll let you take it away. Why video messages aren't about video, that is. And thank you, Ethan. Welcome.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'll give you a quick context for this. For first, how many of you are familiar with video email and video messaging just as a concept and maybe have seen one? Okay, cool. So what we're talking about is anytime you're sending an email, a LinkedIn message, a text message, a Slack message, you could replace some or all of that faceless typed out text with a video message. And there are a variety of reasons you might do so. And one of the reasons I put this kind of why video messages aren't about video, actually one of the reasons Steve's my longtime friend and team member and our CMO at BombBomb, one of the reasons we wrote Human-Centered Communication is that we saw as this movement started getting some momentum, that a lot of people were buying video messaging around prospecting as kind of an attention-getting play, kind of a gimmick or a parlor trick that would be burned out. And that hurt me very deeply. So we tried to level up the context around video messages. And hopefully you'll start to get a glimpse over the next 50 minutes or so, because we have a hard stop at the top of the hour that we'll honor. I hope you'll start to share my perspective, which is that almost everyone working professionally, that includes you, can and should have video messages as part of their communication mix. And the reason I say this is that it serves you better. It serves other human beings on the other end of your messages better. It's better than much of what we're doing today in a variety of ways I'll describe. And I'll characterize it in one more specific way, and then we'll get going. We all know what this is about, like a live Zoom get together. It could be one-on-one, it could be 4 people together, whatever. It could be in person. It could be a phone call, maybe like live synchronous human interaction, real or simulated, close to real, is on one end. It's the richest, it's the best, it's how we connect and communicate best. On the other end, you have the speed, convenience, asynchronicity of email, LinkedIn, Slack, text, etc. Video messages play a unique role where it pulls some of the best qualities from this side and packages them with the convenience, speed, and asynchronicity of this side. It plays a very unique role, and therefore we can use it for almost any message that we're sending. So I hope that you buy that. So I'm going to jump into some slides. And again, why video messages are not about video. And we'll get at what they are actually about. You can see my email address on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. If you find this interesting, helpful, provocative, you have questions, I have a number of resources, and I've been at this for about a decade. So I'm going to start in the most logical place. I'm going to start with artisanal bread. And it's crafted, as you can see, by the artisan bread maker, Sara Lee. We all know that Sara Lee is not a bread maker of any artisan type quality. It's a giant corporation that's been through a variety of corporate structures over the years. And yet they have this bread line called Artisano, right? To connote that it's an artisan's product. Where do we buy this artisan product? Do we buy it in an artisan market? No, if you're me, you buy it at Safeway. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You probably maybe have one of the 21 chains operated by Albertsons in your area. You may have seen this bread on the shelf. This is far from an artisan market. And of course, there's the twin pack. Where do we get the twin pack? Feel free to unmute yourself. Where do we get the twin pack? Costco. I see Angelina saying it. So we get that at Costco. Costco is also not an artisan market. It's awesome. I love Costco, huge fan, but it's one of the biggest corporations in the United States by total revenue. And it is the definition of an industrial warehouse, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, why does a corporation that's been through a variety of structures, distributing bread through giant organizations, position itself as artisan or artisanal, when in fact, all of us know artisan when we see it? We know it when we see it, we feel it, we sense it, we know it intuitively when something has been created that way. And in fact, we're willing to pay more for it very often. And I'll give you a few reasons why. Why is there fake artisanal bread? Well, for starters, it connotes art, right? And that has some value and interest to it. What's art is typically handcrafted. What's been handcrafted typically has the human touch. A human has actually touched this thing. What a human has touched starts to feel personal, whether or not you've known or met that person. It starts to feel personal. Things that are personal to us are things that we package into stories and share with other people as stories. And it is through story that we build relationship. And so when we ask ourselves again, why would a company with a person's name, by the way, Sarah Lee, starts to feel like an artisan making artisano bread? Why does this happen? Well, when we think about what markets and commerce were for millennia, this is just a little bit of a visual representation. It's been a variety of things over that millennia, but in general, I think we can all recognize that markets and commerce compared to today were much more sensational in the most literal sense of the word. Sight, sound, smell, touch. There's a higher degree of transparency. There's a higher degree of accountability. If you're willing to accept this word in this context, there's a higher degree of authenticity to accountability. If someone was selling mangoes in one stall and someone else was selling mangoes 2 stalls down, and there was some significant discrepancy in price or quality or condition, you could talk to people about that. It was very, very direct. And so that's moved around quite a bit. And one of the reasons that markets and commerce are not nearly so personal and relationship-based among many is that we're about 200 years removed from the onset of the Industrial Revolution. This, of course, set off mass production, mass consumption, mass marketing, mass communication, and it created a distance between producer and consumer. I would personally argue that this desire to go to the farmer's market isn't just about getting a fresher product. It's about the all-in experience that reunites us with the producers of things. And you see this in a variety of different markets and contexts. And part of it is a rebound effect from the fact that, I mean, let's just put the number, let's just pretend that humans been around for 200,000 years. I don't know exactly how to date the species. It's longer than that, but let's say 200,000, because then we can compare it to 200 years. That's a factor of 1,000. We spent 10 times longer operating and interacting eye to eye, face to face, person to person in a relationship very, very directly. That's how we operate. And this is going to come out to themes around video soon. In addition, we're only 100 years removed, about 120 years removed from the onset of Henry Ford's assembly line, which coincided with Frederick Taylor, Taylorism, scientific management, the measuring and metricing of everything we could possibly measure, and being enamored and proud of ourselves, of our ability to measure something. But of course, we also know that the truism, it's been assigned to a number of people, including Einstein, that not everything that's counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Someone like John Bogle would refer to these as the immeasurables: trust, wisdom, guidance, etc. But we're only 100 and 120 years into this spell of being completely enamored of seeing numbers but behind things. But these measurable outcomes we know are driven by human beings and human factors. It just happens that we can measure the last step, right? And that's why attribution continues to be a bit of a holy grail. First touch, last touch, blended model. Can we trust it? Is it accurate? If it's a blended model, are all the inputs accurate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're all wrapped around the axle around this thing. Of course, this also set off a relationship between people and machines. Whose job is whose? How can we be more efficient? We're not always asking how to be more effective or how to do the right thing. We're just enamored of efficiency. And if you're wondering, are those children in the factory and children in the mine? Yes, those are children in the factory. And yes, those are children in the mines. And so we've come a long way from there, but we're still wrestling with what jobs belong to people, what jobs belong to machines. How do we put people in their best position to win? What do we totally outsource to something that's machine driven, and what do we keep to people? How do we manage that relationship, et cetera? And when you think about customer experience in general, and you think about most of the markets we're operating in, I would be surprised if more than one person was in an industry or a vertical or a market segment that wasn't commoditized, that had a significant enough moat around it that you weren't fighting for attention, scrapping for differentiation, the ability to communicate that differentiation, and more importantly, deliver that differentiation in a meaningful way. So I'm just setting the scene and reminding that there's still an opportunity to be personal, to be human, to deliver products and services in a way that's literally remarkable, that's worth talking about. And just look at this screen. Think about some of this human contact, human interaction. When you think about the stories that you tell other people, unless something kind of crazy or delightful happens, you're not talking about your last visit to Safeway or Costco. You're talking about that market that you were at, perhaps in a new town that you were visiting. You're talking about someone that does some form of body work that's just absolutely amazing and understands you in a way and communicates with you in an intuitive manner, like this handcrafted drink. These are the stories that we tell other people. And I'm here to suggest that while we're trying to find the most efficient route to revenue and retention and expansion and even attention itself and all of these other things, there are opportunities to inject ourselves in a way that differentiates, connects, and creates a more meaningful experience that is worth more money. Again, as Rich was kind enough to mention off the top, my name is Ethan Beute. My title is Chief Evangelist at BombBomb. It's a topic for a separate presentation. I'd be happy to have that conversation. I am finally decided to start having that conversation on the second podcast I host, Chief Evangelist, but the one that I've been hosting for almost 4 years now is the Customer Experience Podcast. I'm primarily hosting sales, marketing, and customer success leaders, talking about how to work together to create and deliver a better, more holistic, more unified experience. I'm about 240 episodes into that journey, and it's been an absolute joy. And I've co-authored with my friend Steve, Human-Centered Communication. That's a more recent publication from October of 2021. And then prior to that, our first book, Rehumanize Your Business, which is kind of the what, why, who, when, and how of video, email, and video messaging. And again, I've been doing it myself for over a decade. So here are 5 gigantic truths that I don't think you'll be surprised. Well, a couple of them I think you might be surprised by. Shouldn't lead the audience in this way. So obviously we all have to sell and serve virtually. And I mean this in the I mean sell in the broadest sense, and I mean serve in the broadest sense. I don't care what your role or title is. I don't care how large your company is. You sell and serve every single day. By sell, I mean get someone to say yes. These are micro yeses, macro yeses, and yeses in between. Yes, I'll return this phone call. Yes, I'll make that introduction. Yes, I'll sign this 8-figure DocuSign agreement, right? Serve, same thing. But we have to do this digitally, virtually, and online. Everything that happened as a result of the pandemic was inevitable. It just accelerated all of it. And there's something, this is the most important factor. There's some things we like as product and service providers, as sellers, so to speak, and service providers. We prefer to do digitally, virtually, and online. And that informs the equation. But what customers really prefer to do digitally, virtually, and online is what we're going to continue to do that way. I don't care what happens. I do care a lot, but relative to this conversation, I don't. What happens with regard to public health, safety, social acceptance, business acceptance, cultural acceptance, health responsibility of getting together in person related to pandemics and such, we're going to be doing more work digitally, virtually, and online in the future, not less, period. The problem is the online environments that we're operating in are noisy and polluted. Noise, we regard that as benign, functionally, relative to pollution. It's just the sheer volume. Oh my God, I just picked up my phone. Look at all these emails, look at these text messages, look at all these LinkedIn messages. I'm so behind, et cetera, et cetera. It's just noise, the sheer volume of noise that we have to sort through to get to the signal and to figure out what's meaningful. But this noise also comes in a polluted environment. Pollution is the stuff that's harmful, that's malintended. Is this email from who it says it's from? It sure looks legit, but it kind of something feels off to me. Is this link safe to click? Is this attachment safe, or is it actually going to install malware? We don't know these things. So as we're trying to reach out to people in any capacity, in any business, to try to get their attention, to try to get a yes, we have to know, of course, that we're sending it into this huge volume of noise, but we're also sending it in an environment that is marred with pollution. And both noise and pollution are only going to grow. The primary consequence of noise is that it's more difficult to get anyone's attention. The primary consequence of pollution, and it's more difficult than ever to build trust. Okay. In addition, we're going into this battle ill-equipped. Digital communication is almost exclusively typed out text, right? And it's been that way for decades. The same black text on the same white screen: email, LinkedIn, Slack, text messages, blog posts, social messages, etc. Yeah, sometimes we punch them up with video clips or graphics or whatever, but the vast majority of our most important and valuable messages are communicated via faceless typed out text, and it's been that way for a long time. The problem is that this is both visually and emotionally impoverished relative to what human beings need and want from you in order to feel confident, to feel safe, to feel trusted, and to move forward and take the next step, whether it's a micro yes, macro yes, or a yes that's in between, right? So visual and emotional impoverishment. And I'll get to why in just a moment. Obviously, the customer journey has evolved. No matter what role you're in, you're reaching people at different stages of understanding relative to the problem or opportunity that you're helping them with. To call the customer journey nonlinear is the understatement of the day, almost regardless of anything else you hear. The customer journey is nonlinear, period. And customer expectations are heightened. They're not comparing you to your direct competitors or to the best in your segment. They're comparing you to their best experiences that they have no matter what. These lines between B2B, B2C, et cetera, are approximately arbitrary. They do matter. They are useful. But as people are considering their options and shopping, they're not saying, well, let me put my B2B hat on here. Like, they're thinking a little bit differently. They're motivated a little bit differently, but those differences aren't as big as we expect. We need to meet and exceed the highest expectations we know. These are some of the truths that Steve and I were wrestling with to try to figure out what we wanted to do to help. Can we mute?
Thanks for letting me know, Mom.
Could someone mute?
Sitting on somebody's desk.
Sorry,
I can. I got that.
All right, thanks. Mute yourself. Thanks.
Yeah. So we set off on this book to celebrate the 1-year anniversary. By the way, we made it completely free. If you go to BombBomb.com/free book, you could just download it and have it. The main thing we're trying to do is, you can see kind of the themes that you're hearing today are the themes that are in there. And we leaned on 11 different experts to inform that. For example, Jocko Vanderkoy from Winning by Design, Dan Tyre, who's the 6th employee and first salesperson at HubSpot, Dan Hill, who's a emotional intelligence expert with 7 U.S. patents in the analysis of facial coding data, Lauren Bailey, who founded Factor 8 and Girls Club, which is an amazing organization that we've supported for years at BombBomb. So there are a number of voices in there, not just our own, to help us with some of these challenges. And one of the ideas I've been teaching for years, but did not directly make it into the book, although it's there in spirit, is the idea that every single message trains people to open or delete your next message. And by message, I don't just mean email. I mean any time you're asking for someone's time and attention, social feeds included. Every single time you're putting something in front of someone, asking for their time and attention, you are training them, and they are learning whether or not to delete or ignore or skip past the next one. Humans are pattern-making machines. We have limited time and attention, and we're really, really, really good at it. And the reason this matters today more than ever is that as noise and pollution increase in the environment, we're going to offload more and more of this to machines to help us find that signal in the noise and to separate the dangerous from the safe. And so if you're sending an email cadence to someone and they ignored the first 3 emails, the machine now knows that you are not relevant to that person. Your ability to reach them again in the future is thereby diminished, and that's only going to accelerate. And so we need to be thinking now about how we serve people, how much we value and respect and consider their time and attention before we ask for it. And that's the path we need to get on. This is a model that I put together, just kind of organized my own thoughts after I submitted the manuscript before I started teaching these ideas. And I started with attention. You'll hear someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, or 2 decades ago, there was a book written called something like The Attention Economy. So this idea that it's an attention economy and attention's the currency of the economy, there is truth to it, but I don't think that it's true. I think that trust is the true currency of the economy. I see trust as grease. It makes things go faster. And it's also glue. It makes good people and good things stick. What's tried and true, trusted, I would refer it, etc. So the whole goal in any communication, in any channel, in any format, is not to get attention. If you get attention and you mistreat it, you're going to wind up where every path besides this green path on the left side of the model, every other one ends at ignore, delete. Now, there are ways to engage people if you're unfamiliar to them, but we won't get into those details. The core idea here is that left side. When we get in front of someone in a social feed, in an inbox, with any kind of communication message experience that we're putting in front of them, asking for their time and attention, we want to be recognized as basically familiar, us or our brand name. We want to be associated with trusting feelings. Then we want to demonstrate warmth and competence. Warmth and competence are the 2 criteria for every social judgment. These are the 2 criteria by which every single human being judges another human being. It's baked into who we are and how we operate. It is it's something that's been proven useful to us, and so we continue to do it. Warmth trumps competence. Colloquially, we say this as, and you've heard this before, people don't care how much you know. They don't care how competent you are until they know how much you care, how warm you are. So warmth is, do you understand me or seem to want to understand me? Do you seem to care about me? Do you seem maybe to have some of my best interests in mind? Do you seem to believe what you're saying? That's a key thing. And the reason why we judge this intuitively, automatically, subconsciously, before we start evaluating the details, is if we didn't do that, say 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years or 10,000 years ago, and even today, we could be taken advantage of. If we only went on competence alone, the pitch, the idea, the details, etc. That's why when you get that fake Amazon email that's phishing for your Amazon password, they put the Amazon logo in there, right? They're trying to look familiar, be associated with trust, and move forward from there. And so we want to be on this path with people. And we know that we're on it when people think, feel, or say something like, I like hearing from Margie, or BombBomb seems to have my best interests in mind, or Jeff is always so helpful. Now, people may not say these things out loud, and if they do, you may not hear them, but it may be somewhere in that big voice of customer bucket that you may have in your organization through feedback, customer interviews, etc. And one of the ways you can achieve this is through a framework we call human-centered communication. It's simpler than you think, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Human-centered design plus daily digital communication, human-centered communication. Human-centered design is a 30 or 40-year-old practice. We wanted to lean on the familiar. It's a practice that can be applied to any product, service, system, or process. It can be applied to any message or cadence. And we're applying it to digital communication. So a quick aside on human-centered design. It's so established that it has an ISO standard. I won't even get into the details on this for the sake of time. I will share this model with you. It's IDEO's model. That's why their logo is on the screen. They're arguably the world's foremost adherent proponent practitioner of human-centered design. Human-centered design seeks to operate at the intersection of these 3 ideas: what's viable for your business, what's feasible with technology, and what's desirable for humans. What's required for business success? What does technology allow us to do? And what do people actually need and want from us? Now, IDEO has applied this framework initially. One of their projects decades ago was the first Apple mouse. That was obviously a physical kind of ergonomic exercise. How big is the average human hand? What's the right bend of the elbow? Where's this thing going to sit on the desk? Like, that was it's not simple, but simpler than the one I'm about to share. More recently, they designed water systems in Africa. Finite natural resource, society, politics, logistics, much more complex. So you can apply these ideas to anything that you're working on, basically. And the problem in the context of sales marketing, content marketing, business communication is that we typically start with what's viable for our business. What's the registration that we need? What's the revenue we're trying to hit? How many appointments do we need? How many clicks do we need, et cetera? What's the conversion rate we're seeking? We start with our definition of success, and then we tend to move toward feasibility. What does technology allow us to do? Well, of course, we all know that sales and marketing technology is more powerful and less expensive than ever before. And the problem is that's usually where a lot of people stop. This is where noise and pollution come from, particularly pollution. Pollution is anything that distracts you from what you want to do. So it doesn't necessarily have to be dangerous. It can just be annoying and unsolicited. And so all we're calling for in this move toward human-centered communication is a little bit of a move to the center. And all we need to do to get there is to actually start with the needs of people. And it seems obvious, it seems intuitive, and in your personal life, you probably operate this way most of the time, but something changes when we get into the context of our business. We get into a different type of pressure and stress. We have different demands on us, et cetera, and we tend to behave in ways that don't serve other people as well as we serve them in our own personal lives. It's funny, when I was describing to my wife what I was writing about with human-centered communication, she was like, doesn't everyone just do this? By the way, she's not in sales and marketing. She's like, doesn't everyone do this? It's like, well, A, yeah, mostly in their personal lives, and B, not everyone's as empathetic as you. So what does this sound like in practice? Again, I've been at BombBomb for over 11 years. I've been primarily in this kind of practitioner, teacher, trainer, educator, communicator role. And so I've had a lot of customer interactions over the years, and I would repeatedly get questions like the ones in that left column, which comes from chapter 2 in the book. Why didn't she open my email? Why didn't he reply? Why didn't they play my video? And bonus points for being curious, bonus points for asking the question, but this is backward looking. It's reactive and it's about you. Why did I not get what I wanted? And I know I'm offering some truisms and some of them may feel trite to you, but we're more likely to get what we want when we give other people what they want. And that's all that this is about. So before you type a single word or before you record a single second of video, you ask, why would she open my email? Why would he reply to this? Why would they play my video? Ultimately, why would they say yes? And when you do this in advance, it's obviously proactive and it's about the other person. And I promise it works. It's just a habit to get into that most of us are not in on a consistent basis. As I mentioned, I have been hosting the Customer Experience podcast for over 4 years. I think I just released episode 240 this week, 239 maybe. And I ask every single guest the exact same question to open the conversation. When I say customer experience, what does that mean to you? And of course, they diverge in interesting ways, and that becomes a really nice, I'm going to rip through these too. It becomes a really nice conversation point to see where they diverge, but I'm also primarily looking for where all of these answers converge. So the biggest note here is that your only differentiator in the face of product parity, customer control, and hyper competition is customer experience. And the essence, I call where all of these answers converge. I call that the essence of customer experience. The essence of customer experience is how you make people feel. And if you're one of those hardcore people that's like, I don't buy this, I'll walk that out in a minute, but how do you make people feel about themselves? How do you make them feel about the problem or opportunity that brought you into a commercial conversation and ideally a commercial relationship with one another? How do you make people feel about you as a person? How do you make them feel about you as an expert in the field? How do you make them feel about your product or service and the way that it's structured, offered, and priced? How do you make people feel about the brand or company that you represent? How we make people feel drives our business outcomes. And again, if you feel like this sounds too soft or mushy, it doesn't make sense, here's the logic. 95 to 98% of our mental activity is sensory and emotive. 95 to 98% of our mental activity is sensory and emotive, some subconscious below the waterline. So our feelings guide our thoughts, and most of that process we are not consciously aware of. We'd be physically exhausted. Our brain is the organ that requires the most energy. We have limited amount of energy as human beings. We're very conservative. And so most of this activity happens without conscious thought. We'd be exhausted if it didn't work this way. Our thoughts are both conscious and subconscious. The vast majority of our thoughts are subconscious. And the things we feel and think, specifically our conscious and subconscious thoughts, drive the words we say, the actions we take, and the decisions that we make. From here, it's a layup. I hope you're with me. The things other people do, the things other people say, and the decisions other people make guide our business outcomes. Our business outcomes are the result of other people's words, actions, and decisions, which are guided by their feelings and their thoughts. Therefore, the way we make people feel drives our business outcomes. This is a human process. It's a messy process. We can try to add some pieces in there and capture and measure. We can look at the outcomes themselves and the way they're measured, the way those measures kind of correlate with each other, and maybe intuit thoughts and feelings. We can do some customer interviews, but all we're doing there is probing the surface, the conscious level of thought. We might drive people into some of the underlying ideas. We should be doing all of these things. I'm just drawing your attention to the idea that business is a much more emotional, messy, human thing than we like to pretend a lot of the time. And it matters. 2 words on the screen. They're almost identical. One has 4 extra words. There's a lot of talk about personalized and personalization. A lot of people are trying it, but you intuitively as a human being know the difference. And I'm oversimplifying the difference, but when you think about the way these 2 things feel, when you interact with something that's been personalized for you and you interact with something that's personal, you know what the difference is, right? And sometimes personalized and bot driven is completely appropriate. I don't expect there's a human being at Netflix who's manually surveying all the crap we watch to tell us what more crap we should be watching and being right about it and grading it on this is a 98% match for you. Like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed by this, but it's true, right? So the best customer experience is an appropriate experience. Sometimes it's completely appropriate to be bot driven, personalized, machine driven. The one thing we should not do is confuse these 2 things, and we should look for opportunities to add a personal touch to what we're doing. In a world that's increasingly machine-driven, that's increasingly noisy and increasingly polluted, the most remarkable thing you can do is create a personal moment. And we have a lot more time to do that than we think. So when we think about the experience that we're delivering, when we think about what it feels like to be in business with us, what it feels like to be a strategic partner or a prospect or a customer or a recruit or an employee, does it feel industrial? Does it feel cold? Does it feel noisy and polluted? Or does it feel warm, interactive, colorful, curious, sensory, emotive, and alive? And we're probably falling somewhere in between there. One of the books that I reread, I don't know how many of you have written books or long form content, but one of the ways I get through what I call it productive procrastination. No, I'm not doing the thing I want to do, but I'm doing something productive. One of my ways to productively procrastinate is reread books that I found a lot of inspiration in. I've read this book, which is actually a collection of essays published in 1973, written by a German economist named E.F. Schumacher. Subtitle there, you can see it's essentially human-centered economics. It's called Small is Beautiful. And one of my favorite quotes, and this might be the only thing you take away from this talk today, and I hope to wrap up so we have some Q&A, but this idea, I think, is one that you can carry with you and challenge yourself with, or think about your organization through. Any organization has to strive continuously for the orderliness of order and the disorderliness of creative freedom. These 2 things are always at odds, okay? And the problem, the specific danger inherent as we try to scale, as we try to grow, is that our natural bias and tendency favors order at the expense of creative freedom. Let's dumb this down like really far. So we all know if we have a BDR role, a business development role that's outbounding, with some prescribed activities, email, LinkedIn, phone calls, maybe, typically canned and sequenced. Hey, do these things in this order, say these words in this order, do these things in this way. That's orderliness of order. And what we're looking for is a system that's repeatable, that we can plug another kid into. I'm referring to the kids in the mines and the factories. And so if this person doesn't work out and we need to boot them, we can just plug someone else in and this machine's going to keep going. It's consistent. It's measurable. We can optimize it. We can flip the order of things. Congratulations, us. We made something that has a high degree of order. It is highly scalable. But I would challenge that in this efficiency effectiveness balance, we're losing sight to effectiveness. There's a lot of effectiveness in the disorderliness of creative freedom. There's also a lot of satisfaction in it. This is the ability to step outside the playbook for 1 or 2 plays before moving back into it, because that's what the situation calls for. We're responding to that dynamic customer journey. We have someone that doesn't fit the mold here. Why treat them as if they are in the mold? Why force them into it? So this tension between the orderliness of order and the disorderliness of creative freedom is a tension between efficiency and effectiveness. It's present all the time in all of our decisions, in all of our lives, and in all of our businesses. And so it's just something to be aware of that I felt like was on theme and sharing. And so when we talk about video messages in particular, personal video messages specifically are in this, they're currently categorized in the kind of disorderliness of creative freedom. Like, we don't have time for this. I don't know how to make all my people to say the exact right thing in the exact right order, etc. But when I talk about video messages, I'm talking about sending your face, voice, personality, expertise, sincerity, intent. There's that word again, in warmth and competence. Our intent, our motivation. Do I seem to believe what I'm saying? Do I seem to care about what I'm saying? Do I seem to care about you? There's no way when you're reaching out to people to communicate that unless you jump on a Zoom call or meet them in person. Right? Video messages allow you to convey that asynchronously. It allows other people, to the degree that it is personal, that it is helpful, that you have made it human-centered. It makes people feel seen, heard, supported, and appreciated. This is all any of us wants. The most hardcore, badass type A person on this call is equally desperate to feel seen, heard, supported, and appreciated as the person that we would call their opposite. We all desire this. This affects the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, the decisions we make, the way we talk about ourselves. Some of us are a little bit emotionally damaged or don't have the self-esteem to ask for this or to call for it in the right way or in an honest and direct way, or to receive some of this in the right way. This is all a really messy zone, but all of us are desperate, especially in this environment where we have this distance between producer and consumer that's complicated by the additional digital distance that we have. All we want is to feel seen, heard, supported, and appreciated in a 37-second video to say, thank you, good job, congratulations, I'm sorry, I just noticed that, and I just want to support you through this moment. Hey, I saw that thing you were going through. I know I liked and commented on the post, but I wanted to give you this extra story that might be helpful to you. This cannot just change someone's day. It can change someone's week or month or life. I've seen and heard it over and over and over again. I know that starts to sound soft, but if we're looking to have more joy and meaning in our work and to create experiences for people, whether they're our employees, our strategic partners, our customers, or our prospects, these little things are absolutely meaningful. And when you do it on a consistent basis, it creates, you know, the most technical term, I guess, would be brand. A meaningful brand that actually stands for something that someone wants to align themselves with from an identity perspective. In addition to the degree that we use video messages in a more scaled fashion, and I'll talk about that briefly, we can get face-to-face at scale and create some degree of emotional connection at scale. So look at these faces. Would you agree that these both have more emotional charge and more visual appeal than 3 paragraphs of text? I hope that's a yes. Okay. That's what we're talking about. We're about sending simple, personal, casual, conversational videos using tools that you already have, your webcam or your smartphone. If you've been on Zoom calls for the past 3 years, like everybody else, you can do this. The efficiency plays, you can record it once and use it over and over and over again as appropriate. So for example, if you're doing customer onboarding and you need to do a little bit of a show and tell, introduce yourself, talk about why this thing matters, why they want to get it done, bounce to your screen and do a show and tell screen recording. That's a much richer piece than sending an email saying, click this link to go to this post, to go look at all this stuff. It starts to feel like a homework assignment. So there are a number of, or, you know, go into your database, write a smart dynamic list that says, if this is true, if this is true, if this is false, if this value is between this range and that value is between that range, add this person or add this account to this dynamic list. Then write a rule that says, when someone is added to this dynamic list, send them this message. And that message happens to be a video email. Now you know that these 2 things are true, this is false, and those 2 numbers are between that range. You can speak to them in a very specific way without saying, hey, Laura, or hey, Lisa, but it still feels personal because you're saying, hey, At this point, you're probably wondering things like X, Y, and Z because this is true, and this hasn't happened yet. I want to talk about why we need to make that happen and how to make that happen, right? Just these little moments. Using video messages out of the gate feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward. You start to feel vulnerable. Can I do this? Am I doing it the right way? This is a new practice, but keep in mind, there was a day, and this day was about 120 years ago, when the sales huddle broke up in the sales pit. Everyone turned around from the sales huddle and there were phones on the desks, like the rotary dial ones. And they're like, what the hell is this? And you're like, this is a phone. Well, what's this for? This is how you sell now. I can't sell this way. I go to the west side of town on Tuesdays. I go to the east side of town on Wednesdays. I meet people all the time. I schedule lunches. I deliver letters, etc. Like, I can't sell that. And here we are. Now, did we ruin the phone? Yeah, probably. Culture also ruined it. No one answers their phone anymore, and that's fine. But there was 100 years where selling by phone was a thing. So I feel like we're somewhere in that stage around video messages. It's new, it's different, it's slightly uncomfortable, but you can save time. All of us speak faster than we type. A good reference, Rich. It's clearer communication. We can often describe something or show and tell better than we can describe it in our typed out words. We can reduce meetings. There's a big in between. We've all been in a meeting that should have been an email, and we've all been in an email thread that could have been solved with a 5-minute meeting. A video message to a small group of people can reduce meetings. It's also a great follow-up after a meeting, especially for people who couldn't attend. It also adds impact to the message. So when do we do this? This is the stakeholder life cycle. This is the bow tie funnel from Winning by Design. Chop off at the point of commitment and turn it vertical. That whole left side is the traditional sales and marketing funnel: awareness, interest, desire, action. But we all know that action isn't the end. Most of us are in some kind of a recurring revenue model, and we need to get people to that growth loop on the left side and grow lifetime value. The higher the lifetime value, the more money we can invest in prospects, the higher our cost to acquire can be. We want to move people through awareness of their problem or opportunity, through educating them about how to think about it, ways to approach it, what's worked in the past, what hasn't, how you do it uniquely, how you're uniquely prepared to do it. They need to select you against competitors or the biggest competitor of all, which is no decision, inertia, status quo. They need to commit, which is typically signing a contract or swiping a credit card or whatever. We need to onboard them, give them what we promised on the left side of the funnel and an initial impact or value. And we want to grow with them. Hey, over the past year, we've solved these 2 problems with you, and we'd like to continue solving those, but we also solved this problem. Is that something you're facing? And then you have this growth loop where you build a long-term healthy relationship. The reason I call this the stakeholder life cycle is it's the exact same thing for your employees. They need to be aware that there's a job that needs to be filled, or a role that needs to be filled. They need to be educated about the company, why it exists, what the core mission and values are. How is this job structured? What is it responsible for? Who am I reporting to? They need to select you against other offers they may have, or the biggest winner of all, status quo. I'm actually going to stay where I am. I need to commit, and maybe I'm signing a contract on that. Maybe I'm not, but I need to be onboarded. I need to get what I hoped out of the job. You need to get what you wanted out of them, and you want them to continue to learn and grow with you, grow in their role, grow in their skills, grow in their maturity, take more responsibility, earn promotions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you look at this, this is all just a series of yeses. Yes, I'll take the next step. Yes, I'll take the next step. Yes, I'll take the next step. Some steps are bigger than others, but not everyone makes it to that growth loop. And these are some of the reasons why. These are all points of friction and failure: lack of attention, lack of trust, lack of priority. Like, I get it, but I got more important things right now. Lack of confidence. I believe in this idea and I understand what you're saying, but I don't have the confidence that you're the right person to help me with it. Lack of clarity. It could be too complex. They don't understand yet. They're not sufficiently educated. And then the big bucket of anxiety, uncertainty, and indecision. When you look at these words on the screen right now on the bottom part of the slide, these do not show up in Salesforce reports. They do not show up in spreadsheets. These are human issues. These are emotional issues. These are sensory issues. These are communication issues. And I have seen over and over again that if you can identify in whatever funnel you're working and whatever stage of the funnel you're working, if you can identify points of friction and failure that are characterized by one of these things or related, that adding a video message, personal or evergreen is the word I use for record it once, use it over and over and over again every time you need it, someone hits that stage or these 2 criteria are true and the numbers between that range, it can go automatically or you manually send it. By adding a video message to add human communication, human connection, clearer communication, you will convert higher. You will get more yeses. Okay. And you'll move people along. So 3 things to look for to send a video message instead of typed out text. Number 1 is establishing or reestablishing personal connection. If you've met someone digitally, I try to send video messages to most of my new LinkedIn contacts. It's hard to keep on top of, so I don't do it as often as I want to, but that's a great use case, right? You may never meet this person in person, but if you want to stand out from the 18 other connections that they made this week or this month, if you want to show them that you're actually glad that you connected with them and that you have something to offer them, introduce yourself in a 15, 20-second video. If you don't want to use a service like BombBomb or any of our competitors to do it, which, by the way, our Chrome extension allows you to do it directly in LinkedIn messaging itself. You can do it with a LinkedIn voice note. Even that's a little bit better and a little bit more differentiated. In addition, if you're in some kind of a more formal sales capacity, people go dark on you. I would time block every Thursday afternoon from 1 to 2 p.m., look at all my open opportunities, and reach out to people with a personal video message and try to re-engage them. Hey, it's been X number of weeks. These are a couple of things we talked about. In that conversation, you told me X, Y, and Z. Wanted to follow up. How are you feeling about those things? If you want to talk about that, happy to do that. Whatever's appropriate for that situation, but establishing or reestablishing personal connection across the digital divide, emotion or tone. I already mentioned a couple of these. Thank you. Good job. Congratulations. I'm sorry. I dropped the ball. I messed up. I regret. These things that are emotionally charged in some way where your sincerity matters above all, right? Because we've all seen that celebrity or athlete or politician get behind the podium and say all the right words that their lawyer or PR person wrote for them. And we all know that none of them mean it, or some of them mean it. That's what I meant to say. We can tell the people who mean it from the people who don't, because some of them are just reading the words and some of them are actually sincere. And we can tell the difference as human beings. It's the way that it's being said. If you're a parent or a coach or a manager or a leader, you've said some version of this before. Hey, listen, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. That's what we're talking about here in this conversation, right? The way we say it matters. And so emotion and tone are so much better captured and communicated through video. Ideally, you're in person for some of these if they're really charged. But, even if you clapped up someone's promotion, if it's someone that's meaningful to you, send them a video and communicate that with your sincere enthusiasm. Makes a huge difference, way better than text. And the last one I've already mentioned a couple times, a couple ways, detail or complexity. A screen recording is the answer here. This could be a product demo or walkthrough. It could be a specific question, right? Like, hey, I don't understand why this doesn't work that way. It might be easier just to hit record and describe it in layperson's terms, or it might be better to jump on and do a screen recording to break down detail or complexity for one people or for a group of people. So again, video messages are not about video. What are they about? I've already said them. They're about clearer communication, human connection, and higher conversion. If you want to communicate the way humans need and want to be communicated with, based on millennia of evolution, if you want to build relationship and build connection despite the noise, despite the pollution, despite the digital divide, despite the separation of producer from consumer, if you want to close that gap a little bit because it's going to be a meaningful difference in your business, and I promise it will be, videos will help you do that. And when I say conversion, yes, we've seen this, and I didn't bring case studies with me, but I have them in my pocket and I didn't save enough time to go through them. You will see it in the numbers, but you have to know that the numbers that you're seeing at the end of mixing 2 or 3 videos into an 8-touch sequence will change the conversion rate. It'll change the response rate. I've seen it over and over again out of outreach, out of a new tool that we've built. I've seen it in a number of scenarios from a number of different teams in a number of different industries. You will get measurable conversion to move if you do it basically well. But what I'm saying when I say conversion is making it easier to say yes. Do I feel like I like you? Do I feel like I can trust you? Do I seem to believe what you're saying? Do you seem to believe what you're saying? All of these things that human beings have learned to be very, very, very good at over millennia, judging warmth and intent and motivation before we decide to take the next step. That's what's baked into all of those problems that I put on the bottom of that other slide. If we want people to say yes and to take the next step forward, I would propose that you find a way not just to do the live in person and the live Zoom, not just to do the asynchronous email, LinkedIn, Slack, and text messaging, but build some of those bridges in between with video messages that take the best of both and bring them together. So again, I love these topics. I'm passionate about them. They've transformed my life and career. I've seen it happen for tens of thousands of other people. I've written 2 books on the topic with my friend Steve. We made our most recent book absolutely free at bombbomb.com/free book. It's got a ton of awesome people in it, not just our own thoughts, opinions, experience, and research. And that's what I brought. And with that, I think we have about 3 or 4 minutes for questions. And
Thank you.
I hope it was
Thank you
interesting.
so much, Ethan.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I really appreciate going through everything. We do have time for questions. I'll go quickly here. Beth, come off mute, and if you have a question.
Right. Yeah, so it's a celebration, but also a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. And I met Ethan at an event and introduced him to Dennis. So I was really excited to see
Yeah,
you.
thank you
present
for
today,
that.
Ethan. Yeah. And yeah, Ethan did follow up with a LinkedIn of, I reached out to connect and he reached back out with that video message. But how do you learn to get comfortable with it when it's just not part of your world on the day-to-day basis?
Yep, good call. Again, I call it the paradox of vulnerability. You will feel vulnerable trying to do this the first, second, third, fourth time. And the reason I call it a paradox is the exact same thing that makes you uncomfortable and makes it hard to do is the exact same reason it's so effective. And that's your ability to let go a little bit for 37 seconds or for 1 minute and 48 seconds to be present with another person through a camera lens when they're not actually there. That's kind of awkward. And the difference between a live Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, you might, and 5 minutes later or 5 hours later, kick yourself, be like, I wish I'd answered that question differently. Or shoot, I should have spoken up when that person said that thing. How you kind of dwell on things that didn't happen, but it's done and gone. The difference with video messages is you can actually play them back after you record them before you send them. And a lot of people do. And you are your own harshest critic. You're going to look at things that no one else cares about. You're going to notice things no one else notices. Did you say too many times? Did you look off and, it took you a second to gather your thought? These types of things. Your imperfection is your perfection. This is like being across the table from you over coffee or lunch, but without you having to get into your car or get on the train or get on the bus or get on an airplane to be there. This is you in person at scale. And so it should be imperfect. It should be how you are. Now, do you just hit record and wing it? No. If it's a complex message, one thing I propose is you maybe outline the key bullet points. And the thing is, you're not going to pretend like they're not there. And first of all, don't write a script and don't read a script. It's trash. It doesn't feel human. You're going to wind up looking at your screen and think you're saying the right words in the right order. It's not about the right words. It's about the right feeling. Right? It's about the way that you emphasize it. It's about your sincerity, your passion, your tone, etc. And so if you do want to outline a message because it's important or you don't want to miss one of the 4 key points, put it up on your screen or write it down in a notebook. And when you start the video, it's, hey, Michael, it's Ethan. Great question, common question. There are actually 3 different ways to think about it. And I have them over here on my screen or, and I wrote them down here. So I'm going to quickly walk you through these 3 things. And what that does is it gives you permission to look away and to use your support material in a way that the other person understands. So then, because the natural intuition, and I'll stop talking in a minute. And then we'll go to Larry's question. If you were to act like you weren't leaning on your notebook or you weren't leaning on your second screen, the other person, not consciously, is wondering, what is she looking at? What's going on outside of my view? Because if we were across the table over coffee or lunch, I could see exactly what you were looking at. I could see who you were looking at, who just came into the coffee shop door, right? I could see these things, like I can put it together and my mind is doing all this subconsciously. If we do it on video, what's happening outside the screen that you're reacting to or engaging with, it takes people out of your message and it has them wondering. Then they don't know that this is happening, but their mind is now tracked on or multitasked on what's going on here, right? And so, so that's the deal. Practice is the only way through. And my best tip for practice is think about people that you want to say, thank you, good job, congratulations, I miss you, I'm thinking about you, I just saw this on social media and I want to plus it up. Think about people you know and who know you and send simple messages of primarily appreciation and gratitude. This will get you comfortable with whatever software you're using. By the way, there are a number, you could do a DIY, don't do DIY. By the way, I guess this is my link, Rich. So if you need to peel off, you could peel off. I'll answer questions
It
for
is,
another
yeah. I
10
want to thank
minutes.
you so much. I'm so glad you're going to share the recording, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Cool. Sounds good. So, where was I? Outline, in any case, I just got sidetracked there with the departure of Rich because I knew we had to go. Oh, messages of gratitude. You don't need a script. It fits into that category of having a positive emotional charge, sincerity. The other thing that's going to happen is people are going to open it. People are going to play it because they know you. My best tip to get someone to play the video that you put into a message is to add at least one line of text over top of the video, telling them what's in it. Again, from a human-centered approach, if you're clear on what's in it for them, what their motivation would be, why you're doing this, how it serves their time and attention. And by the way, it doesn't have to be dropping value bombs and knowledge nuggets. It could just be to entertain them for 15 seconds, right? I've got something you're going to be really excited to hear because I saw that thing that you posted on Facebook, right? Someone's going to play that, right? So that's that. It's practice. Start with people you know and who know you. And the most important thing about this is you're going to get, let's just say you send 5 messages of gratitude this afternoon or appreciation or congratulations. You're going to get at least 2 replies back that confirm to you, Beth, that this is a different and better way to communicate messages like that, because you're going to get replies back. They're going to have some multiple exclamation points, or they're going to have some all caps, or they're going to have an emoji or an emoticon, and all that's communicating back, or it's going to have lines like best email ever, which no one ever says unless there's a video in it. That's for them and about them. They're going to try to give you back through their limited tools of the keyboard or a keyboard, the same energy that you gave them through the video. I've seen that happen over and over again. When you see multiple exclamation points or words or sentences in all caps or smiley faces or whatever, all they're trying to do is give you back the same energy you gave them in a video, and they're ill-equipped to do it. So it becomes manifest through those tools. Larry, what's up?
Thank you. Almost too much to absorb in an hour, so I'm grateful
I know,
for the recording.
I realized I was overambitious there.
So there's a few things I want to touch on, and I'll be very brief with each. First, with regards to Beth, several years ago, I hired somebody to help me do some 60-second video clips for marketing purposes, and I'm a perfectionist. It took me a year to get the first one recorded, and years later, now that I look back at them, I laugh because you just have to do it. And the thing I can say that is absolutely correct, and I'm not a guy that likes to do the self-recording. I don't like the sound of my own voice.
Nobody does.
Perfection. Imperfection is perfection. It's about being human, and the only way to get comfortable with it is to practice. The second thing is, I was wanting to reach out to you outside of this venue to ask you a question, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. I'm going to try and track that down, but be aware that I have something I would like your input on if possible.
Yep, I'll put my email and my LinkedIn in the chat.
Thank you. The question I have for you is, I'm big on demographics and being able to differentiate proprietary aspects of various forms of marketing and outreach and communication based on demographics. Have you found that the video component has greater efficacy or less efficacy with any demographic attribute, including age, industry, product versus service, nationality, etc.? There's just a buffet of attributes. I'm just curious if you have any objective data that says that it works best here or least effectively there.
I do not have objective data. No, I do not. I have anecdotes that say these people always do this. These people never do that. Never send a video to a CFO. I closed a huge deal by reaching out to a CFO with a video. No, I do not have objective data, and the anecdotes that I have are all conflicting. So ultimately, here's the deal, and we all know that this is true. If someone sends you the exact same email at a particular day and time, and they send you the exact same email at a different day and time, your willingness and ability to give it appropriate time and attention is different. Right. And so this is the same thing too. There are also different personality types. This is one of the reasons actually why one of my podcast episodes is called The Problem with Video Prospecting. It's one of the reasons I titled this Video Messaging Isn't About Video. It's one of the reasons that we wrote Human-Centered Communication, is that we saw this movement, and that's how I think about this, as being killed before it was ever really moved into toddlerhood or really even healthy infancy. And it was being killed by people using this as an attention-getting mechanism or scheme. So typically the people that say, I would never watch a video, are the people who've gotten a crappy video message, right? It's the same, it's people taking the same crappy, poorly targeted, selfish, lazy prospecting tactics and messages and putting them in this format. And yes, will it get you a little bit more attention? Yes, it will, because it's different, but you're going to burn out the channel and burn out the opportunity. And the biggest problem in this isn't that it's only going to work for this company in this motion for 6 months before it burns out. The problem is that you're introducing thousands and thousands of people who should be considering this for their own internal or external communication, no matter their role or business or industry, to the idea that video messages suck because video messages are about crappy prospecting, right? The same people that say direct mail suck are the same people that have received a bunch of crappy direct mail, right? And so that's what I didn't want to have happen. That's the reason I'm trying to elevate the conversation. I'm trying to draw into some of the immeasurable benefits of it, because everyone wants to talk about, we lifted, like, so for example, some of the case study data that I'm presenting in other presentations is that for a group of people that we prescribed video to, primarily inbound lead follow-up, so kind of an SDR function with a prescribed cadence. The people who did video as we prescribed it, because we have a kind of a consultancy layer, we don't charge it that way, but we have a consultancy layer functionally because people don't know what to do or how to do this because it's new, that the people that did all the videos as we prescribed experienced a 3x lift in click rate in their emails. 73% of their clicks were on their videos, and they had a 53% higher conversion rate. Now, this is more of a B2C play, but those C's at the end of B2C, it's a mortgage company. Who do people lend money to? Who do mortgage companies lend money to? Everybody. Preachers, firefighters, teachers, executives, so this is just about human to human connection. And you might reach someone on a day where they don't want to be reached and they're not going to watch your video, and too bad. That's why you have to pay attention to who's engaging, who isn't, and have some follow-up mechanisms. So I don't know how satisfactory that was, Larry, but for the sake of time, because I only have about 5 more minutes, we'll go to Margie.
Thank you.
Sure. And thanks for your feedback on video and your own experience there. Margie.
Hi, thanks. That was really interesting and thought-provoking. I'm curious if you focused a lot on the sales, outbound prospecting, kind of the sales part of the process and using video then. But in the CX world, right, there's so much that goes beyond just that initial first touch point. Are there other places where you've seen video be really effective at, removing that friction or?
Yes. So I
I
was the first and only marketer at BombBomb for about 3 or 4 years. I did everything. I wrote all the support articles. I made all the newsletters. I segmented it 6 ways. I did all the onboarding and training webinars, which is kind of a CS kind of a function. I did all the blog posts. I did all the social, et cetera. And so I was definitely in this whole zone, and I needed, because it was a young company, no one was doing this, by the way. You look at companies like Vidyard or Loom or some of these other ones, they're much younger than us. We've been at this company was legally founded in 2006. I joined the company full-time in 2011 after doing 2 years of part-time work with them. And so in 2009, 2010, this was rough. And we didn't know who's finding us, how are they finding us, how are they using us? What's the best way to further solve better people's needs? So I offer that as context around kind of a CX and CS type of function. How do I make people who bought us successful? How do I find more of those people? How do I inform product? How do I inform dev? Because we didn't have a product function at that time. It was all dev making these decisions. How do we provide that feedback loop into there? So, in terms of any yes you need today, do you need to line up 5 customer interviews to get feedback on something? Do you need to communicate a recent emerging trend from however you're organizing VOC? And do you need to communicate it to other leaders and other functions? Whatever you need people to understand, or whatever you need people to say yes to, or whatever you need people's opinions on, is an opportunity to communicate more effectively with video, back-end report, analytics, proposals, walk and talk the video. So again, any message you're sending by email, LinkedIn, Slack, text messaging, etc., has an opportunity to be clearer, more persuasive, more impactful with a video message. It could replace some or all of the video. In general, I say never replace all of the video. Never replace all the text with a video. Always include at least one line of text to characterize what's in the video, to motivate people to play it, to give them some promise of value or tease of value. And then one line of text afterward to reinforce whatever the next step is, which is done in the video. But most people, most of us structure our call to action at the end of all of the stuff, right? Like, I need a hook to get people's attention. Then I need to lay out the 2 or 3 arguments. Then I'm going to make the call to action. The problem is, in a video, if you're catching someone at a busy time, they might not, we will show you how long people are watching your video, and how long people are watching your video on average. I see it all the time on my videos. Like, people drop off at 89% or 92%. They feel like they've heard it because I'm emotionally winding down. I'm physically winding down. They can feel that I'm ending the message because I'm ending the message, is how we all talk. So when I'm firing up and, oh my God, this guy's going to keep like talking at me really fast, versus when I'm kind of winding down and I'm about to go to Hans to ask him his question. You can sense that. So anyway, don't bury your call to action at the end of the video always, and don't restrict the call to action to the body of the video itself. Also include it in the text that surrounds it, because in all those environments, you have an opportunity to add text above and below the video. The first one drives the video play. The second one reinforces it. Last tip here, out of courtesy, if you're making 3 specific points, or there's like day, time, location type stuff, out of courtesy, yes, you're saying it in the video, but also reinforce that with a few bullet points underneath the video, in addition to reinforcing the call to action. One of the things we did to mitigate that a little bit is we give transcripts down the side so people can follow along. You can turn on captions automatically, etc., so people can follow along. Part of that's ADA. Part of that is just courtesy for anyone that wants to digest information in multiple formats. But your ability to take a couple of the most salient points and bullet point them, or details that, and the reason why is you don't want someone to have to go 1 minute and 32 seconds back into your 3 minute and 4 second video to get that thing that helps them take the next step. You want to make it easier for them to say yes and take the next step. Last question, Hans, what do you got?
Well, it was not really a question, to be honest. It was more like a remark towards Larry, but he just jumped out.
Okay.
But no, it was in regards to, he was mentioning indeed that the fact that his first video took like a year to perfect, and then when he looks back, that it just took too much effort. I think I just wanted to share that I recently started to create my own GIFs, and as a basic entry into video for people. This is really easy to do because it's just like a 2-second video without even talking. It turned out to be super effective. So basically what I did there is I looked at Jiffy, looked at the GIF response I always use, and I just recreated them in front of my screen, edited them, removed the audio, and uploaded them again to a private board on Jiffy. And then because you have your Jiffy keyboard on your phone, you can basically insert them everywhere. So on social media, on email messages, etc. And responses to that have been super great. So I just
Awesome.
wanted to,
The only thing is, we take the first 3 seconds of every video and loop it automatically. So we make a GIF for you and tell you how long the video is. So if you don't want to follow all those steps, we do the first 3 seconds automatically.
The only pro tip I can give people if they want to do something like this, I also did one where I shot a confetti cannon in my office here, and I should have done that after before the cleaning lady came, but I'm still wrapping up.
You did one of those too. It was kind of like a congratulations message where we had like several team members stand in front, like, we bought all these guns and made a huge mess. And it was it's a fun one because it's super visual and it's fun and it feels fun. Anyway, I have to go because I have something at the bottom of the hour that I need to tee up for. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for staying on long. Thank
sharing.
you for your comments and questions and your own experiences. Again, I'll keep this open for just a minute. So I'm just talking to stall. My email address and my LinkedIn are in the chat, like maybe 8 messages up. Feel free to hit me up. I have a number of other resources. Happy to answer questions and appreciate your interest in this. Again, I am primarily motivated by making business a bit more personal, therefore better and more fun. You will get better outcomes, but my goal here is to change business culture and in that way change people's lives by feeling like they know more people in a meaningful way, despite the fact that we can't get together in person as often as we need and want to. So if I can help you in that mission, let me know. Best to you all. Thanks for being here and thanks for staying 15 minutes over. Cool. See you.
Thanks, Ethan.